Oh, hello everybody and welcome to our session today. This is our Wellbeing Wednesday session, which we host regularly with Dr. Gemima Fitzgerald to think about topics related to wellbeing for carers. And today's topic is about resilience, what resilience is and what it isn't, and how you might build up your resilience, an area that Gemima knows lots about. So Gemima, are you able to just introduce yourself for those people that haven't met you before?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Yes, so I'm Gemima. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been involved with Dementia Carers Count since 2017, so for a few years now. And working with carers of people with dementia is a real passion of mine. So yeah, my doctoral research was around resilience. So this is a topic that means a lot to me, and it's really nice to be here today.
Oh, thank you, Gemima. So if you've got any questions or comments that you want to pop into the chat, we'll do our best to cover those as we go through the session. If we're not able to cover all of them, then we can try and follow some of them up afterwards if we don't get to answer them during the session. But we'd love to know your thoughts, and especially if there's any particular things that you do to build your resilience, we'd love to know that and to share with each other. So just thinking about resilience, and the reason why we kind of think about it for carers is we appreciate that being a carer is very difficult, and lots of pressures, lots of different stresses, and times when I think people feel like it's all too much or really difficult. So that's kind of one of the reasons for thinking about resilience. But can you just tell us a little bit, Jemima, initially about what resilience is? It's a bit of it's a phrase we hear a lot, but
Yeah.
maybe don't know necessarily what it means.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. It's such a yeah, it's a bit of a buzzword. People say it quite a lot, and it's really important to know what we're talking about, because otherwise we can be kind of talking at cross purposes. And resilience is really about how we cope when times are tough, with stress, with adversity in life. Um, it's that ability that we have to be able to get through difficult times and survive, and kind of move forward afterwards, even when that difficult time is maybe past. It's a skill that you learn. It's not something you're born with. People aren't either resilient or not resilient. But it's something that we can learn, and it's about how we learn to interact with other people. It's about how we think, how we behave, things that we can do to help us get through things, and then things that we can learn so that we go forward in life, being a bigger person, if you like, having some growth and some development despite really, really difficult times in life. And we know that resilience you're not born resilient, and you don't become resilient if life is always good. If life is always great, that's good, we'd love that.
Yeah.
That's what we'd all choose, but that's not how we become resilient. Actually, we become resilient when we have something tough in our life, some adversity, and then surviving it, learning from it, coping with it, and getting through it. And so although none of us would choose difficult times, and certainly family carers of people with dementia, they're going through a really tough time. We know that they're facing worry, stress, anxiety, exhaustion, often social isolation. There's so much that they're going through that's difficult, maybe anger, frustration, guilt, depression, and none of us would choose to go through that. However, as a charity, we're really here to support family carers, and we really want people to be able to learn how to cope and how to survive it. And what resilience definitely isn't is just saying to someone, well, you need to toughen up, or you need to put a smile in your face, grin and bear it, or you need to just be positive, because that's just not helpful. And it isn't even really true. Yes, sometimes being able to see something positive in difficult things, of course that can help, having some optimism, some hope. But often it's about being able to say no. Like, I'm going to put some boundaries in here. I'm not going to do everything for everybody just because they're telling me that they need me to. So it's much more complex than just being able to be positive. It certainly isn't that. And actually, sort of sucking it up and getting on with it can be really detrimental to our mental health. So So, but having a bit of grit and being able to get up in the morning when we really don't feel like it, of course, is a part of it, and a bit of endurance. So it's a really big subject, and there's no one size fits all answer to it. But we're going to kind of look at it today and look at, yeah, maybe something that will be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Jemima. I was going to say something about the emotions, and that people assume, or there's this kind of myth that being resilient means that you are coping and that you have got your emotions under control. And whereas actually probably it's the opposite, which is admitting that you haven't, and that you are upset, and that you are experiencing these emotions and talking about those.
Absolutely. You know, it's the asking for help is really difficult, certainly for lots of people. You know, some people find it easier than others, but being vulnerable enough to say, I'm really struggling and I can't do this on my own, is so courageous, and is so much a part of being resilient. You know, it's sucking it up, or manning up, or getting on with it, or grinning and bearing it, isn't it? You know, that's a surefire way to crash and burn in the end. So yeah.
Lovely. Dean has put a comment, actually said, if I had £1 for every time I've heard the phrase "man up,"
Right.
be rich. Yeah. And then Sally said, be honest with yourself, recognize your emotions and feelings, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
So just thinking about resilience again, about the different kind of aspects of resilience.
Yes.
So
okay, I'll just
are there different aspects of resilience?
Yeah. So okay, so
you've got emotional things, or social things, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you've got so obviously, you know, we are complex people, all of us. There isn't just one thing that helps us get through really, really tough times. So we'll kind of use an approach which is called the biopsychosocial spiritual approach, which really sees us all in a much more holistic way. You know, that it's not just a medical model of take a tablet and you'll be all right. You know, it's so much more to us than that as human beings. So when we're talking about biology, you know, that's what's going on in our body. It's also our genetics. It's also, you know, how we feel physically, whether we're getting enough sleep, whether we're eating the right food, whether we're getting some movement in our day, but also and what our genes, what our personality is like. So some people are a bit more easygoing, a bit more laid back, and that tends to make us a bit better at coping with stuff than if you're a bit more highly strung and a bit more on the anxious side. But then there's the psychology part of it. So how we think is a massive part of resilience. So how we learn from tough things. So if we have an approach that is just like, no, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I don't want to be in this situation. Of course, we all feel that, but it's long term, that's not going to do us any good. So we have to try and find a way of like of being able to look at this. Okay, how am I going to adapt to this situation? How am I going to get through it? The social side of it is how can I ask for help? You know, how can I connect with other people? What are my relationships like? What kind of you know, do I have a sense of belonging? That's a huge part of resilience. Are there some groups I can join? Are there some things I can do? And then also, you know, the spiritual side. So spirituality is a massive part of resilience. And that doesn't have to be religion. It can be your belief system, but also just really a sense of meaning and purpose. And what's the meaning of life? Because that's a really big question. Well, you might ask that, but really, what's the meaning in my life? What's the reason that I have to get up in the morning? What is keeping me going? What is sustaining me through this? Is there a sense of there's more to life than just the immediate problem in front of me? And if you can have that, that's also a massive part of resilience. So that's just a sort of a rushed whiz through of it. But those are the sort of the different components.
Thank you. So we've had a question or a comment saying, I used to think I was resilient, but now I feel like I'm not coping. Every morning I wonder how I'm going to make it through the day.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we're in a crisis, when times are really, really tough, it's almost impossible to feel resilient in that moment. You know, I think most of us have been there where we just think, there's only so much I can take. I know I have. And in that moment, what resilience might just be, I'm still alive and I'm still getting up in the morning, or I'm still getting through the day, or today I managed to, today I managed to drink some water and have some food and made it through the day. And that can be, that's surviving, isn't it? So I think when we're going through the absolute worst of times, just surviving is being resilient. And it's often when things start to, we get some help or things start to shift and move, that we can look back and think, gosh, I was really strong through that period. That was really tough. If you're feeling like that you're not coping, then I think one of the things that would be useful to have a look at is, well, what can make us feel more resilient? What can help when we feel like that?
That was the next question I was going to ask you, Gemima.
Right.
What would help? How can we build our resilience?
Okay, so gosh, there's so much to that. So first of all, when we look at the biology side of it, I know for family carers of people with dementia, sleep can often be a really difficult thing. And actually we've got a Wellness Wednesday coming up about sleep, so we'll look at it more. But if you can, trying to get some good sleep, even if it's a broken sleep, even if it's napping in bits through the day, is important. If that's just impossible, then you look at what else you can do for your body to get you through. So obviously trying to eat some healthy food is important. Staying hydrated is so important. So drinking lots of water is really, really important. Really basic things. But when you're stressed and exhausted, it's sometimes these are the things that slip, just grab a bit of junk food or just getting through the day, but actually that's going to take its toll on you. So looking after your body and self-care is so important. So taking time to not just sleep but to rest when you can. So doing things that recharge your batteries, whether that's that's important to get some exercise, or to go for a walk and get some fresh air if you can, or sit out in the garden, or sit on a park bench and just take some nice deep breaths. Just realize, and also when you're doing those things, knowing that it's having a positive effect on your body is really important. So looking after your body is really important. But also how you connect with other people. So that social side, feeling a sense of connection. So thinking about your relationships with people. Do you have someone that you can talk to? So talking about your feelings is so important. If you can open up to someone, then that's going to help you. Bottling up your feelings isn't good for you. So being able to reach out and help and ask for help, or just to say, I'm struggling, you don't need to fix this, I'm just struggling and I need to talk to you about how I'm feeling because I feel really lonely. And I think loneliness has such a detrimental effect on us, and we know that loneliness isn't whether you see people in the day, it's a feeling of connection you have with us. You can be in a crowded room and feel completely lonely. So actually being able to open up and say, this is how I feel, to the right people or persons where they will actually listen is really, really important. Having a sense of belonging, having a sense of connection. So if you can join a carers group, or having that with your family, is really, really, really important. But also, like I said right at the start about saying no, having boundaries with people in your relationship. So sometimes carers find, especially when they're exhausted, that the easiest thing is just to say yes and just do it, because no one else in the family is picking up the slack, so I'm just going to have to do it. And they get so burnt out. So where possible, being able to have a family meeting, if that's something you can do, and say, look, I can't do all of this on my own. I've been struggling for a long time. I've been doing too much and I need your help. It's time now for us all to pick up some slack. So it could be something like that. And so looking at your social side, looking at how you connect with others, and having a sense of occupation, having a sense of, what do I do in my day that helps me to feel that I have a sense of purpose in my life. When I talked about the psychology of resilience, this is a really big topic, but having some learning about yourself, we learn about ourselves when we go through tough times. We also learn about who our true friends are. But, you know, learning about yourself, self-awareness is massive in resilience, and how we talk to ourselves. You know, we usually, most of us have an inner voice, an inner dialogue that's going on all the time, you know, as we kind of mull through what we've got to do next in our day. And I think being able to notice when we're being hard on ourselves is such an important part of resilience. So often we can be really self-critical, especially when we're going through tough times, and just tell ourselves we're stupid, we're not doing well enough, we're failing, we're letting people down, no one likes us. You know, it'd be amazing, you know, if we could all have a conversation about the thoughts that we have in a day, we'd probably all be quite similar. I know when I've spoken to carers before, like, there's so often we're very critical of ourselves. So being able to notice when we're being self-critical, and then introducing a thought that's kinder. So maybe how you would talk to the person that you love the most in the world. How would you encourage them? And start to encourage yourself. It might feel a bit fake at first. It might feel like, I don't really believe it, but doing it anyway is really, really important. And we know in terms of resilience that having a voice is really important. So feeling that you can express your needs. Sometimes as carers, we kind of just feel that we're so much the bottom of the pile. What we want, what we need is not important. So being able to say to somebody, I need this, I need you to help me with this. I would definitely recommend
Lovely.
that.
I'm just going to put a couple of comments through just to give you a minute to get a breather as well. So Claire said, you reminded me when the children were small, instead of trying to be perfect, I learned to be good, to be comfortable with being a good enough mum. I need to stop beating myself up for not being perfect and apply that kind philosophy to being good enough carer now. So that's what you were saying. Brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, and Claire, that's such a good well, it's a good thing that you've said there, and you're absolutely right. Being a good enough carer, being perfect just forget that, because perfection doesn't exist. But being good enough and being comfortable with that is really going to help your resilience. But also what you're showing there is you have become more resilient. You've learned that from a tough time when you were a mum, and you know, your children, and you were, you know, when you were young, your children were young, and you're probably at the end of your tether sometimes, and you learned that. And so that's a really important sign of your growth as a human being and how resilient you are, that we do learn through challenging times. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And then Susan, so this is when you were talking about the some of the biological symptoms or things like that. She said, at last, this explains why some of us feel these symptoms. After being confused for a number of years, now I'm wondering. The change, bad memory, mood swings, stress, agitation and tears, can't sleep, so moody in the morning. Moody in the morning makes for a crap day, and then crap day means no appetite and lack of concern for myself or anything around it. So that kind of cycle really of you know, you haven't stressed, and then that affects you physically, and then you don't eat properly and sleep properly, and you kind of go around in the cycle. So she's asked if there's any way of testing for this, but I think it kind of linked to awareness.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think sometimes when we're rushing around, we don't stop and ask ourselves questions. So just checking in with yourself is a really important way of noticing, and you know, kind of, if you can, and I know it's difficult when you're, you know, running around and you're busy, but just to stop and, you know, with a notepad and pen, just track your day a bit. Like, what have I actually done today? You know, I got up, I skipped breakfast, then I went here, and just look at and have a look at your day and think, well, what could I have done differently in my day that would make slight improvements to that negative cycle? So it could be stopping and having some lunch would have been really helpful, rather than just grabbing a packet of crisps and running on, or, you know, just finding out. And also, you know, or I could have just introduced some kinder thoughts when I was really running myself down. But I think that's, yeah, you're on the right track there.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got some comments about thinking about sharing with other people and kind of linking that when with somebody with dementia. So Liz has said that talking to people really helps. I used to feel embarrassed about my husband's dementia, not for me, but for him. Our neighbours have been amazing. They have been there when I've needed them, and have even been on a dementia awareness course themselves. So being able to share what's happening with people and knowing they understand feels like I can be myself again.
Oh, how lovely. And you're so right. You know, sometimes we carry shame and embarrassment for things that aren't aren't our shame to carry. There was nothing to be ashamed of. You've learned that. But when we are in that place of feeling ashamed, feeling there's something wrong with us, or our husband or whoever, feeling that it kind of isolates us, and what it does to our body is it clicks in our sympathetic nervous system, which is cortisol, stress, all the things that are bad for us, really raises our blood pressure. It does really bad things for our body, feeling ashamed of something in our lives. So, Liz did absolutely the right thing. She opened up, she was vulnerable, she was courageous, and look at the benefits. So that's huge in resilience.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as well about often carers experience the dementia diagnosis and that kind of situation where the person you're caring for has changed, and the way they are in social situations has changed. Quite often leads to social isolation. So friends stepping back maybe, or you're not doing the things that you used to do because they're not as easy. And so that's quite a difficult thing to negotiate, isn't it? And to kind of move through. And
huge. It's really, really hard, especially when you do feel that some people are holding back or not visiting as often, which is a reality sometimes. So it's really hard to not then internalize that and think, well, there's something wrong with me and my family and my husband or my wife or whoever. People don't want to see us anymore. I feel awful. Or I go out to a cafe and my partner with dementia is embarrassing and or behaving in a way that other people are giving me funny looks, and it's so isolating, which is why it's really important to find other people that get it, whether that's because they're going through it or just because they're empathic, kind people, if you can.
And some of the sessions that we do at a lot of our online sessions and face-to-face sessions we give people that opportunity to share with each other, so that they can find somebody else that's going through similar things and advice about how to manage that sort of thing. So we can go into it in much more detail in some of our other sessions. A comment from Gina: I'm a big believer now to give myself grace to go with the flow and remove my hopeful expectations I have on my nan. Life in the moment is way easier. So something about those expectations that you have.
Yes, it's that ability to adapt and be flexible is so important in resilience. Being flexible. If we're rigid in well, this is how it should be, this is my life, and I resist change, that's so hard. It has such a detrimental effect on our mental health and our well-being. So Gina's attitude of trying to adapt and be more comfortable with change, really tough, but it is the way to do it. And having that more mindful approach of, okay, today this is what I'm dealing with. Let's not think too much about tomorrow or yesterday. Let's live here in the moment, and we can get through today. We're doing well.
Yeah, brilliant. That fits with the some of the difficulties people have when they care for somebody with dementia, in the sense that actually often things are different every day, and so something might work with somebody one day and then the next day you might have a completely different experience. That's one of the challenges. And so kind of having that approach of, well, let's just go with what we've got today, and if it's not working today, let's just leave it and try again tomorrow. It kind of fits with that sort of generally coping.
Not being too attached to
we must have done this by today. Brilliant. Okay, so then Lee, as a carer for someone with vascular dementia, the thing that has helped me the most is learning about the disease as early as possible. Easier said than done, I know. I came across a lot of dead ends online, but all of the information I did manage to collect stood me in good stead. So being proactive and not reactive.
Lovely. And that's that's one of the massive things that as a charity we do, is that we provide people with information, with courses. It's a bit like, sometimes you get the dementia diagnosis and it's so scary for the carer. It's so scary to think, oh, what am I dealing with? It's a bit like being in a dark room and not being able to find the light switch. So if you can, switch that light switch on and learn about it, and it doesn't mean that you're going to know exactly what's going to happen, but just to have more of a sense of what's going on and what might help is really valuable.
Brilliant. We've actually whizzed through time, Gemima, you wouldn't believe it, and haven't got long left. A lot of these, it's kind of like the introduction to this topic, really, because a lot of this sort of discussion we have in a lot of our sessions that we provide online, or the information that we have on the website. And we're going to be having a Wellness Wednesday session a Wellbeing Wednesday session every month, so there'll be lots more opportunity for people to share things. But is there anything that you kind of want to get in that you haven't covered yet? Or any last tips about resilience?
I think asking for help is a really big thing. I think to know that you're not either resilient or not. Like, I hear a lot of times people saying, you know, I used to think I was resilient, now I just think I'm not, I'm failing, I'm not. And so understanding that it's not about that, it's about learning as you go through life. You know, there's a phrase, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And I like to think of it, I don't like that phrase. So I like to think of it, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And if you can learn as you're going through hard times, that is the key, really. There's no such thing as perfect. So letting go of that, and just realizing that as human beings, we're all just doing our best. And there's no shame in trying to survive and get through things, and hold on to a bit of hope that you will get through this. You know, you've got a 100% track record of surviving. That's why you're still here. And you will get through this, you know, one step at a time, one day at a time. And I like to think of the what they call the serenity prayer, which is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And there are some things in life that we can't change. You can't change the dementia diagnosis. You can't change, you know, a lot of the things that you're dealing with, but there are some things that you can change. And that's some of the stuff that we've looked at today, you know, a sense of belonging, sense of connection, saying no to people, having a voice, talking to others, looking after your body. You know, these are all things that maybe you have an element of control. Being kinder to yourself, 100% you've got control over that. And so learning the bits that you have control, and the wisdom to know the difference, so that you're not fighting and resisting the things that you can't change anyway. You know, put your energy into the things that you can affect and can influence. And it's worth spending some time probably thinking about that. You know, what bits are within my control? What, you know, I need wisdom about that. And hopefully that will help you to feel more resilient and move through this time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gemima. Just to let you know, we do have a support line available. So if anybody wants to discuss this in more detail and get advice and some guidance from us, then you're welcome to call it. The number is 0800 652 1102. I'm sure that will be added in the comments, and also it is on our website and on our Facebook page. So if you want to follow up anything, then do get in touch and we will do our best to support you. So thank you very much, everybody. It's been lovely having you. Please come back and join us at another session. And if you've any particular things that you think you'd love us to cover or know more about, then send us a message or email us, and we'll see what we can arrange. So thank you so much, Gemima. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, take care, everybody. Goodbye. Bye-bye.